So today is a day of celebration. We joined with Amy as we stood on the shores of freedom as a people, finally having a solid footing, aware that behind us was the mud, and now we were free. There's a wonderful midrash, early imagining of the rabbis in terms of that crossing of Reuven and Shimon. There they are amidst the sea and the walls of water on every side. And Shimon is only looking down. He's not looking at the walls. And he says to Reuven, Reuven, my feet are in mud. Mud, like in Egypt with the making of the bricks. Mud here, mud there. The rabbis leave it to us to fill in the meaning of that psalm, which is we are often not looking up, we're looking down. And what we see is what we expect to see or what we're used to seeing. Mud there, mud here, and then a reflex association. Bricks there, bricks here. How often in the midst of the extraordinary do we not pay attention? And so in this moment, the people have crossed, but they were chased. They were chased because here again it says that Pharaoh's heart hardened. Yes, even after the 10th plague, Pharaoh once again had a change of mind. Once again said, wait, I don't want them to go. And that's why those Egyptian soldiers wound up in the midst of that sea. How could it be that Pharaoh even now changed Pharaoh's mind? And what does it mean to have a heart that hardens? And why would God harden Pharaoh's heart, taking away seemingly his right of free will? How would God take away a will and then punish? And so the rabbis have a variety of answers. First, focused on this question of what is a hardened heart all about? Some say God hardened the heart of Pharaoh because there had been so many years of harsh, brutal treatment of the slaves that God wanted to do signs and wonders to demonstrate God's glory. And so after each plague, there was a hardening. The first 10 times, by the way, the first 5 plagues, it says Pharaoh hardened his own heart. Only after that, for 10 times, the next 5 plagues, does it say God hardened Pharaoh's heart. And Maimonides, the great Jewish philosopher of the 12th century, he had another explanation. He said, what does it mean to have a hardened heart? It means that you're motivated by momentum, by habit. You see, Maimonides writes, the first 5 times after those first 5 plagues, which I'll add, occur in nature, Pharaoh rationalized and changed his mind. And then it became so much a reflex that it was expected and happened, that Pharaoh hardened his own heart each time as a matter of habit. Momentum is powerful. Pause to think of this moment from Pharaoh's point of view. His economy depended on the slaves, which was true, by the way, of economies around the world until the 19th century, when machines did the muscle work that throughout history had been done by people on the lowest echelon. For Pharaoh to allow his slaves to go would mean to undermine his economy in a major way. It's understandable why momentum allowed Pharaoh to rationalize once the plague stopped why there did not need to be any change, that normalcy could return time after time after time. I was talking to a congregant the other day, and he was telling me that for his Seder, he dresses up like Moses for the last 5 or 6 years. And this year, he could only do it on Zoom with his family. And as Moses, he talks about the challenge of leaving. And he said, to me an insight. He said, and he's a physician, he said, it took death for Pharaoh finally to relent. For us, our ability, and understandably so, to shut down an economy is just a huge thing. It took the immediacy of the danger of contagion, of pandemic, for us as a country and us as a world to go indoors so as not to spread it. That inconvenience of those other plagues, which do occur in nature, could be rationalized. It was only the immediacy of that 10th plague that finally allowed Pharaoh to relent, but then again, he would change his mind again as the people drew closer to freedom. So powerful is both that economic pool, but more is momentum, the familiar. It's hard for us, understandably so, when we're invested, to see the world any differently. So when there's a unique virus emerging, it's only natural at the outset that people equate it to the flu, to that which is familiar. It takes a certain wisdom to step back and to say, wait a moment, this is different. And that's what we've done. This is different. And my friend, the congregant, also pointed out, he said, in this time of shutdown, you look up at the sky. Like today, I'm looking up right now through our skylight. And he said, it's a different color blue. People aren't driving. It's only taken a few weeks, but somehow the air is different. We become aware in this moment that in the normal, business as usual, which is understandable, we drive to get from here to there. We fly, and pollution grows. The air is different today. I have a friend, I love him dearly, Dr. Peter Pizzoli. He's the father of bibliodrama. He's among the most creative people I know in many, many ways. And he's been telling me about climate change for quite a while. I don't spend the time, he's retired, that he has reading and listening to scientists. He shocks me when he says of himself months ago, I'm one of those musicians on the deck of the Titanic. Because from his point of view, climate change is so far along, we're going down. I don't quite viscerally see it quite as strongly, but at the same time, I take him seriously. He's not an alarmist. He's somebody who has made the study of the science of climate change central and sees it as an existential threat. And he says for himself, all he can do now is pursue equanimity. And so he meditates. He writes a poem a day. He says, what I can do is be a source of good in the world that comes out of my own equanimity. But he has been throwing up those red flags for years, but more forcefully in the last months. I saw a cartoon that said, technological change in my company has been swift and dramatic. It is due to A, the CEO, B, the CFO, C, COVID-19, which is to say, good will come out of this time. Our hearts have been directed to use technology in remarkable ways. I'm so moved to hear of people's Zeders, those Zoom Seders, in which families gathered from around the country to unite, to feel connected. A resource that we really didn't use in the same way technologically. And so I have a prayer as we reach the side of freedom. With Pharaoh on the other side, because his heart once again hardened, my prayer is that we will listen to the scientists, the doctors, and the best wisdom that they can gather, and there's always incompleteness. It's Colin Powell who said, the great general, that most decisions are made only with 40 to 70% of the information. If you wait to have 100% of the information, it's too late, he said. And if you have less than 40%, you don't have enough. But that's to say, important decisions are always incomplete with data. How we respond in this moment, the data is incomplete. But the scientists who gather the data are essential in the decision making. And likewise, when we come out of our homes and reach that other side, and we look forward, may our hearts be open to what scientists have taught us about the damage we are doing with pollution. May we know that our planet too is fragile as a living thing, that it can reach a tipping point, and then a new world. Already, we know of climate change's impact. The majority of those African refugees to Europe was not due to the civil war in Syria. It was due to drought. We know that climate change is melting the glaciers of both the North Pole and the Antarctica. We know that people's livelihoods are threatened in the villages of India and Nepal because the rivers have dried up and the fish aren't there, and therefore they have moved to the cities en masse. And now, when the cities have become dangerous or refugees, may we know that how we treat our planet matters, that the scientists have something to say that is worth hearing about, that momentum of how it used to be cannot necessarily be how we move forward, that unless we act not only to prevent COVID-19, but the disaster, the existential threat of climate change, then we will but have now a taste of the havoc to economy, of the havoc to community, of the havoc to our God-given gifts that we are charged to steward. Ribono Shalom, Master of the universe. On this, the seventh day of Pesach, we breathe out. We breathe out as we celebrate with song the reaching the shores of freedom. But as we read the Torah, we know that already on day 3, the people began to complain and even long for the familiar of Egypt. Because as they moved forward, they were moving into the unfamiliar. Freedom is the capacity to look with fresh eyes and to see dangers and to respond. That's the difference between the Israelites and Pharaoh. Ribono Shalom, Master of the universe, may we not be foolhardy. May we not overreact. May we be wise. May we see dangers and respond with equilibrium. May we be helpful to each other. And may we sing the songs of freedom. Az Yashir Moshe Uvenei Yisrael. Then Moses and the people sang. May their song echo within us as words of hope, of responsibility, of the strength to move forward. Amen.